In this video, we'll be talking about heat. Now, it's a known fact that a lot of wireless adapters do generate heat, and if you're in a hot environment, then that obviously makes the whole matter even worse. So in conjunction with a review for the Topdon TC002C Duo thermal imaging camera for your smartphone, I'll be looking at 12 wireless adapters and we'll be picking out which one is the most coolest running, which is the most efficient in its cooling, and which also cools down the fastest. And it was a bit of a surprise to me which adapters really do cool down the fastest. Now I've selected 12 of probably the top 12 2-in-1 wireless CarPlay and Android Auto adapters. We've got the Minix CP85, we have the Brooks U2, we've got 3 adapters from CarLinkit, we've got the Ultra 1, Ultra 3 and the SE Pro. We've got 2 adapters from Ottocast, we've got their Mini Cube 3 and their Mini adapter that we just checked out recently with their multi-user support. We have the 2-in-1 from Bitewave or Curaco. Then we've got the latest from MSX TTLY, this is their version 2. A recent one that we've looked at, the RGB Nano from LinkyFun. We've got the version 2 of the Quad-Lock 2-in-1 adapter. And then finally we've got the only tethered adapter here from Dance, which basically mirrors the Minix. That's also a tethered, but you do have the opportunity to remove that cable. Now all of these adapters feature in the top 16 2-in-1 wireless adapters. So we are talking CarPlay and Android Auto, not just CarPlay specifically. That's a different category. Now all these will do wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. All of them got different ways of handling their thermal abilities, such as we've got a couple here which use aluminium. So we've got the Brooks, the CarLinkit here. We have the Ottocast Cube 3 and I think the LinkyFun, but probably not. That's I think is plastic, it's not actually aluminium. So those 3 have got ways to efficiently reduce cooling with glass exteriors as well. The rest of them are pretty much plastic exteriors. Some have got this glassing on top which helps with heat dissipation, but otherwise you just got plastic ones, plastic and plastic. Various sizing of casing as well, that can also make a lot of difference in terms of thermal cooling. And obviously the connectors themselves and how near they are to a heat source and whether they're exposed to heat externally as well, whether it's through a sunlight from a sunroof, for example, which is generating more heat, or you just got a general hot internal cabin, can also contribute to how well these function. Now in my test, I'm out of the car. It's quite cold here at the moment. We're in winter in the UK, so it's probably not best of a middle ground to put these in a car right now. So I have been testing them in the studio, plugged into a series of adapters, running them all, and also doing some future tests for my best top 5 2-in-1 adapters, which will come out at the beginning of the year. I've updated these to their latest firmware. Also checked out if there's any additions for my spreadsheet that I'll be releasing next year as well. So they're all running the latest updates, with the exception, I believe, of the Ultra 1, which means this is a older or pre-production version, and I am unable to get the latest update for that particular adapter that is meant to help with cooling. But this is a good example to show you that this is a hot boy, and it really is a good comparison alongside the rest. But first things first, let's go over how we're going to capture and record the thermals of each of these adapters. So we'll be measuring this with the Topdon TC002C Duo. It's a nice compact way to plug a device into your smartphone. The Duo element to this product means that you can actually use this adapter on either iPhone or Android. So you're not fixed at any particular platform. This adapter will work on either iPhone or Android. With a simple download of its Topdon app and connecting the camera to the bottom of the device, everything all springs to life, and you can then just use its thermal imaging camera to use in whichever way you see fit. Whether you're doing a diagnosis for your engine, in the home checking for cold spots or checking installation, or generally going around your home and discovering hot or cold elements in the house as a little bit of an experiment. Now I went around my home to check out various locations that I thought this thermal imaging camera could actually help provide, and there was some really good insights, such as finding cold spots around certain areas that lacked insulation, through to this particular one where I saw that how the heating was getting into my recent extension and where it's coming down through the wall. And with a little bit of fun, you can try out your pets as well, like this one here. But generally, it's a really good device just to check out those particular things that you visually can't see with your eyes. Now there's lots of ways you can actually visualize the type of content, and there's also a special thermal enhancing resolution that reveals a much sharper image and it makes scanning that heat a little bit clearer and a little bit sharper. Also help with its high resolution of 512 by 384, which is much more than some thermal imaging cameras that also connect to the phone. So you've got to get high resolution, better recording, and a lot more accurate as well. As you can tell, it's got its own built-in recording. You can take photographs as well. So there's a lot to like in this product. It comes all together in this nice little carry case. It's hard, zippable carry case that keeps everything all nice and secure. You get a manual and some extra paperwork, cleaning cloth for the actual camera itself, 2 means to connect this device should you not want to directly plug it underneath the phone. You can have it on these cables here and run it that way. And of course you get the actual camera itself. Now it's nice and small and compact. You've got the single lens on the one side. You've got the model number here on the bottom corner there. USB-C, which means you can then use it for the most latest iPhones, as well as Android that runs USB-C. Nothing on the sides here, and you've got some stamps on the bottom here. And on the other side, you've got Topdon branding. Now connecting it is super simple. You've got the Topdon application here ready to get plugged in. And thanks to USB-C, you can either have the camera facing you and you can actually see everything that's facing you, or better still, you can actually face the camera the other way. And as soon as you connect the camera and the application is loaded, it then detects the device and then it starts loading nice and quickly. You can see here that it's actually detecting all the various heat sources from this camera straight away. And whilst it's showing you, can actually update that live view as well with the maximum and minimum temperature it's currently recording. You can see here, it's picking up my hand there. It's really nice and clear. Even just pushing down the fingerprint, for example, you can see the heat afterwards and it cooling down and disappearing. So you can have good fun with that and all the various things that you can actually do as well. You've got various ways to show and measure the different heat sources that the camera is seeing. And you've got various picture-in-picture. So you can actually have live feed if you want to record and show the actual camera footage at the same time. And we've also got the different ways to showcase that kind of content, black and white through to different color effects as well. So you can customize the whole view how you see fit. You've got 2 separate ranges here. You've got -20 up to 150 degrees C. We can go 150 to 550 degrees C if you're capturing a lot more hotter products or environments. So great product from Topdon. So it's been a real helpful to have this product on my channel and showcase these thermals that you might have seen in previous videos over the last month. And it's been super handy to record that information for you so you can see how well these adapters perform thermally. Now let's get back to the video covering these adapters. Okay, that's an overview of the Topdon thermal imaging camera. Let's now get back to the adapters and how they all performed. So first things first, I ran these adapters for around about 20 minutes in idle just to see what operating temperature was like. Now this ranged from around 26 degrees all the way up to 47 degrees on certain adapters. The two being the 2 CarLink Ultra and Ultra 3 adapters, they both were the hottest. These 2 adapters from Bitewave and MSX TTLY, they were the second most hottest in idle mode, between 44 and 43 degrees. And then finally, between 35 and 40 degrees was the Ottocast Mini, the Linky Fun RGB Nano, followed by the Deer Dance, the Quad Lock adapter as well, and the Mini Cube and the SE Pro. Now that's a little bit more obvious because you've got more plastic casing in these particular adapters other than the RGB Nano, but without any particular other than these tiny little fins on the edges there really wasn't that much cooling on that adapter, even with the glass fronting as well. That really didn't do that adapter much favors in keeping the whole thing cool. But the big surprise with these two was that they've got some passive cooling holes on the back there and the Bitewave on the sides, and that basically mirrors the MMB as well, so the MMB will probably be just the same as these, and it really didn't do that much in terms of cooling it down. However, these might redeem themselves a little bit later, so keep watching and I'll go over that in a minute. So the two that did the best in terms of their idle temperature was the Minix, which is a little bit obvious why, and I'll go over that in a minute, and the Brooks. The Brooks has the aluminium casing on the outside and the glass. That kept it a little bit more cool during its idle function. And the Minix, basically, it's all case and no cooling whatsoever on any of it really, other than this glass panel on the front doing the job. And that made it basically keep the coldest. And you'll find that if you've got a big casing, then it's going to keep the whole thing cooler. Whereas you've got very little casing going around these chips, so there's much more heat can generate, and it's got to eject that heat a lot better. And only the kind of materials where you've got aluminium touching that chip is going to offer much better cooling than these plastic variants. But how did they fare once they've gone through updates, they've gone through some use of going through its ipconfig menu, and generally how well have they done in just around about an hour of being continuously powered and operating? Now, things surprisingly changed at that point, other than the CarLink kits. So the two CarLink kits continued to be quite hot, probably the hottest, but they were also joined with the MSX TTLY in keeping that heat. Now, again, it is almost one of the smallest ones that are out there at the moment, so there's no surprise that they were keeping their heat quite high. Next, we have the RGB Nano, followed by the Bytewave and the Quadlock. Now, these three, again, small adapters, but they are wrapped in plastic. Some have got better cooling. Middle to low regions in terms of their temperatures went to the Autocast Mini, the Deer Dance adapter with its plastic exterior and tethered cable, alongside the Mini Cube, which is one of the smallest, but its aluminium exterior and glass front really did help dissipate that heat long term, and the Brooks and the CarLink Kit SE Pro. All did kind of average in terms of their long-term temperatures. However, the one that really did continue to shine was the Minix, which actually went down in temperature, but not by much, thanks to that bigger case and its glass fronting there, distributing that heat a lot better. Now, if you all factor in their 20 minutes to an hour temperatures and their fluctuation changes, basically means how well are they distributing and exiting that heat long term, you'll get some surprising results. Now, the worst was the RGB Nano. It performed relatively average overall, but its temperature increase was 4.3 degrees difference between idle and an hour, alongside the Brooks, which is also a surprise considering its thermal materials really didn't help it. It climbed an extra 4 degrees over that period. So although it was the coolest over idle over 20 minutes, long term, that heat really did build, and that just shows you that material didn't actually dissipate that heat that well long term. So that was a surprise to me, and there is one extra surprise a little bit later in a minute. The Mini Cube 3 and the Ultra 1, they did a little bit better, but still quite warm with a 2 degrees rise. The MSX TTLY and the Ultra 3 did a little bit better still, with only 1.1, 1.4 degrees in rise between idle and long term. But the ones that did the best, sometimes even going less temperature, so they were actually dissipating that heat quite well, was the CarLink Kit Mini, the Minix, the Deer Dance, and the Bytewave. So these four had very little creep in terms of their heat temperatures, meaning that they were able to dissipate that heat using their case design or the materials, or generally the efficiency of the chip inside was better too. Case in point was the Autocast Mini, because it has no cooling other than through that button. There's no holes to help dissipate that heat, but what it does have is that extra case design over some of the other smaller adapters that are available. The Bytewave has all that cooling on the sides. The Deer Dance has that plastic material, some cooling, but I wouldn't say that's sufficient, just that plastic casing, and possibly its ability to hang out a little bit looser around some of the others that were around it. But again, the Minix with its bigger case design, glass fronting to help distribute that heat, that also did very well and actually reduced over time. And for that made the Minix the best cooling 2-in-1 adapter that's currently selling today out of all the ones I've tested in this experiment. Now, it's not the most smallest and discreet, so the most smallest and discreet and the best thermal cooling probably has to go to the Autocast Mini. That had very little creep. It actually went down over time, but its temperature did sort of average at 38 degrees. So not the most coolest, but it didn't creep at all that much at all. It actually went down in that hour. Another one that didn't actually creep up that much is the SE Pro. Again, due to its case design and size, that's obviously helped distributing that heat a lot better as well. just because of its size. Now, another surprise was its thermal cooling. Turning all of the adapters off and letting them cool down over around 15 to 20 minutes was a big surprise. Basically, the CarLinkit Ultra 3 was one of the hottest, that stayed hottest for the longest, followed by the Brooks U2. Both of these adapters took a long time to cool down, which is a surprise considering their thermal materials that they use, the glass and the aluminium. That was a big surprise to me. I thought they would cool down the fastest, but they retained the heat the longest over all the other adapters that contain plastic casing. So that was a really big surprise for me. After around 5 minutes, it took the CarLinkit 3 the longest to cool down, which then went on to the U2, which took even longer to cool down. I took a few away just to see what next was the most hottest, and it was pretty much the Quad Lock that was taking a little bit longer to cool down over some of the others. The Ultra, with its thin plastic casing, because the casing is doing most of that thermal expenditure, that obviously took the fastest to cool down completely. So that's, in a way, even though it does get the hottest, it does cool down the fastest as well. So that's a good thing to take out of those CarLinkit adapters. Probably alongside the Minix and the Diagnose and the SE Pro, those ones also were quite quick to cool down because they didn't really heat up that much. But after around about 5 minutes, both the Brooks and the CarLinkit Ultra 3 were still the same temperature as the most coolest operating Minix adapter after 5 minutes. It took another 10 minutes to get to the level of most other adapters' heat temperatures. So overall, that was a really big surprise at how much time it took for the Brooks U2 to cool down efficiently. After about 15 minutes, most adapters pretty much cooled down into equal temperatures, with the exception of the Brooks that was still cooling down, but not really that far behind them anyway at that point. So that was a really big surprise in terms of their materials and casing. It's not necessary that aluminium is the best in terms of how rapid they can cool down, and specifically the Ultra 1, because of its size and very little cooling ability, that was a big surprise at how quickly it heats up, but also how quickly it cools down. So my take out of all this, I'd say that the Autocast Mini is probably one to look out for, one to go for, specifically if you're looking at the multi-user side of things. So you got that added value with the switching, as well as its thermal performance as well is actually very good too. Alongside it is the Cube 3. I'd say, considering its size, its ability to choose a USB-C connector as well is also quite an advantage if you've only got USB ports in the front and center of your compartment. That material and its ability to cool down, considering its size, its reduction and average buildup in heat over time, wasn't that bad considering its size. If temperature is a factor though in your car environment, or you're in a hotter environment, do look into bigger products, bigger cases. They will run a lot better than these much smaller form factors do. But do consider more cooling, more vents, and not necessarily the materials are a factor either. Sometimes those materials might be more of a detriment, which is one of the big takes and the big surprises out of this test. Right, I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks again for Topdon for supplying the hardware and the ability to test those thermals out of these 12 wireless adapters. I hope this has been helpful in deciding which adapter might be best for your own environments in the car. If it has been helpful, do consider liking this video down below and leave any comments if you have any questions about any particular adapter in this test, and I'll try my best to answer them. If you like this kind of content, you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by sending us a super thanks down below, along with your comment or question. You can hype this video for free. You can check out this QR code up here to buy me a coffee, and you can support me there too. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.